Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Figuarts one-piece Portgas D Ace, a fan favorite, a very anticipated figure, and he's one of my favorite characters in the series, and so I'm very happy that they made a new figure. I am not happy that the one-piece line has been largely a failure so far, but maybe, just maybe, this one is the one to turn things around, and I'm happy to tell you, if you've heard people saying this is the best one in the line so far, they're right, it is. Is it good enough though? Because being the best of a pile of bad things isn't necessarily a good enough thing, but maybe this one is. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. Alright, before I show you the figure, I do want to show you my package. It's a good package. I like that the color in the background isn't the same as his flesh tones. They tend to do that a lot on these figures lately. I like it when they stand out, so that's a good thing. I don't like, for those of you who are inbox collectors, personally, I don't really care because of the packaging. I never see it after I'm done with the review. But if you're an inbox collector, wouldn't you rather have the figure in the larger area and then the accessories shown over here? Let me know if you're an inbox collector. I don't know how many people are doing that these days with these higher end, expensive figures with all the accessories and posability and stuff. But let me know. Anyway, it's a good box. I think the one-piece packaging is still top tier for SH Figuarts. Despite the line being kind of a dud, packaging is nice. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the review. Two things. One, I've changed my lighting setup so that I can film a little bit nicer, so hopefully. That's the plan anyway, so any input you guys have would be great. Is it bright enough? Is it dark enough? How's the color grading? How's the color correction? All of that sort of thing. Does it look good to you? And everybody's device is going to be different. That's why I want to know. I know it looks good on my end, but I want to know how you guys are seeing it. So let me know that. The other thing is I will be starting a live stream. It'll be 2 times a month, every other Monday, where my buddy and I talk about current ongoings in collecting, or maybe we'll be talking about articulation or sculpting or whatever. He sculpts and knows all about action figures in the same kind of way I do. So that should be fun for you guys, I hope, and if not, we'll turn it off. But that's the plan. So the first one is going to be the second Monday of this month, so that'll be next week, and it's going to be at 8 p.m. We'll be doing a live stream, and hopefully it's a good time. That one will be mostly about New York Toy Fair. But okay, and then the last thing is this guy is in stock at Big Bad Toy Store. If you want to get one, I'll put a link in the description below. Let's get into it. Question of the day: who's your favorite One Piece character? If you're watching this, I'm assuming you are a fan of One Piece. If you're not a fan of One Piece and just watching to support the channel, you're great and awesome and amazing, but you won't be able to answer the question of the day unless you just want to go by character design from what you've seen. Then go for it. Mine is Zoro, and then Ace. Yeah, probably Zoro than Ace. Zoro has a little bit more content in the show. Alright, let's get into this review. People are telling me it's the best thing ever, and other people are saying it's over-engineered and sloppy, but still fun. And then other people are saying different things that I haven't heard because I don't hear every people. So, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, there's truth to everything I've just mentioned. It is, it's pretty darn good in a lot of ways, and it is over-engineered to heck and back. It is crazy how much engineering they put into this figure that they didn't need to do. So, alright, first thing I'll do is I wanted to do a comparison with the variable Action Heroes Ace. I was asked to do this comparison, so here it is. I think this one is far better sculpted. He's a little bit different styling, but I think the anatomy is way nicer on this one. Way nicer on the big one. So that's a thing for sure. And he has more paint on him, and it's a way more... Actually, it wasn't. This was like $100 when it came out. This one's like $100 now. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but it still holds up really well, but it's an entirely different scale. Alright, so this guy stands roughly 16.5 centimeters. That's going to make him just about 6.5 inches, not counting his hair. Here he is up against Darwin, so you can see you could easily fit it in with your standard larger than 1/12 scale figures. Now, sculpt-wise, this guy's not bad. I don't love the way they did the torso. It's obviously very cut up for articulation, so that's kind of weird. And because of that, this area in the pecs to shoulder to clavicle area is just shot to hell. It's not good. It's way too mangled. It makes him look like he's been skinned alive or something. It's a really weird thing going on around here because of the way they did this shoulder joint, which is one of the things that's really over-engineered. Now, maybe it works. We'll talk about it when we get to the articulation section, but as far as the aesthetics go, it really screws up the sculpt a lot in the shoulder area, unfortunately. And even the back looks really weird as a result. Look at that big lump back there. That's not supposed to be there. That's not really how those muscles work. So it's pretty weird looking in general in terms of the sculpt for the torso. Paintwork is super clean everywhere. The abdominal section's okay, but they did put a crunch in here, which isn't great. Arms are exceedingly thin. I know they're kind of lanky characters on One Piece, but his are very thin. And he's got a pretty big crotch gap, a thigh gap that I don't care for. So he's not that great looking. Like, he's okay, but it's not great. If you look at the individual sections on this guy, it looks pretty good. Like the head, for instance, it looks really nice. I think they nailed the face sculpt and paint. The hair looks good. A lot of the individual musculature looks okay. But if you look at it as a whole without posing it, it's not a great looking figure. And a lot of people say, well, why wouldn't you pose it? Well, a lot of people don't have enough space to pose everything they buy. So you end up with collections that are in a lot of hero poses. So yeah, if you're going for hero pose, it's not great. That thigh gap really throws it off, honestly, because he's very slender, but the thigh gap wouldn't be there at all with baggy pants on for a male. So there's a lot of weirdness going on. The paints are clean. There's no shading throughout the skin tone, so be aware of that. But otherwise, it's pretty darn clean and looks really good. This thing's nice and clear. God, it's been forever since I watched One Piece. Log post? Isn't that what that's called? I need to get back into it. I'm on episode like 500 or something like that, 530. Anyway, it's a good looking figure, but it really needs to be posed to hide some of the issues. So I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10 for the aesthetic. It's okay. It's not particularly good, though. Now, as far as accessories go, there's a bunch to like. So you have the normal head, no hat. You get an alternate top of the head with the hat. That looks really nice. It's very, very nicely done, so that's good. As for faces, you get a really good spread of faces, a bunch of them, and I think that's good, except some of them are Luffy, but that's good too. They were still building out Luffy apparently throughout all the other figures, but yeah, the faces look really nice, so I'm pleased with that. You do get a bunch of hands, and some of them have the flame effects on them. That's pretty cool. I think, okay, well, we'll talk about that in a second. We do get some flame effects, which are also really well done. They're not as clear looking. They're not like crystally. They're kind of milky, and that's a choice they made, and it looks really good still, so that's okay. And we do have, like I said, the hands with the flame effects on them, but we don't have any of the flame effects for just like the finger, for instance, that a lot of other figures have done. Or, not a lot, there haven't been that many, but like this guy, for instance, he had them. So yeah, it's a good spread of flame, but maybe not as much as it could be. And then you do get his backpack, which is really nicely detailed, and you get his scarf and coat. And so that's a pretty darn good spread of accessories. It's maybe not perfect, but I think it's plenty. One of the flame effects also has like 2 pieces to interchange on there, so you have some variety. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I will go 9 out of 10 for the accessories. There's room for improvement, but not a ton. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation, because this guy is cut up like crazy, and like I said, over-engineered more than maybe any figure I've ever seen. Now, there's one good thing, and maybe Bandai's moving to this as a whole, because I have another figure I'm reviewing that has the same thing. Ball pegs for the head and neck, and it just moves around however you want, whenever you want, with no effort at all. Now, his neck is cut up like crazy down in there to afford the shoulders to work, but it's hidden by the necklace, so that's not too big of a deal. But the neck is on a ball peg also. Doesn't have a ton of range, but the head itself does. So yeah, very, very pleased with the double ball peg situation here. Makes me so happy when they do it right. Now we have these goofy-ass shoulders, which are kind of like Revoltech shoulders. You have the joint inside the cup of the shoulder, which looks ridiculous, but maybe it's useful. So maybe you can bring his arm around his chest. You can. And so that's useful if you're going to do photography, but it's definitely not the best looking butterfly joint we've ever seen, and I'm not sure it's altogether necessary. But this piece in here is basically just connected on a ball peg, so that piece moves around. It doesn't move around a ton though. It's a butterfly joint that works. It definitely works, but I'm not sure it works better than it would have if it was a regular joint that didn't have these goofy shoulders. Because like right there, oh look, it's natural, it's organic looking, the shoulders going back, great. But when you want to do normal poses, like even just raising his arm out, it makes his arm really skinny. You get the benefit of lifting the shoulder up in a natural way, but there's definitely a trade-off. I would describe this as kind of like a better version of what Revoltech does. I still don't love it, but there's definitely some benefit to it. I think it needs a little bit of tweaking though, since it does give him that kind of weird look. So yeah, I'm torn. It's functional enough for sure. It's also kind of ugly, but also good looking in other ways. So it's just going to be something you have to decide if you like or not. It's not objectively good or bad. It just has some trade-offs. You do get a bicep swivel here, and in a minute I'll show you the other guy, the variable one, because it's pretty interesting too. He's one of the better articulated figures I've handled for just a male body. All right, so yeah, butterfly joint, or I mean, bicep swivel, single jointed elbow. Not the best looking elbow we've seen, but it is there. It does elbow, and then you get your ball hinge wrist. That's all standard. For the torso, now this is what really drives me nuts. That torso is so cut up. Look, compare these two torsos. That one's not cut up at all. It's cut up at the rib cage, and you can barely even tell it's cut down here because they used the sculpt to hide it. This one has a freaking upside down ab crunch in it for no friggin' reason. Stop friggin' doing that. No more ab crunches on high-end figures. In fact, no more ab crunches ever. Do ball pegs. Do them correctly. He's so janky looking because of that. They didn't even really hide it in the sculpt. That's so frustrating. But let's see. He does lean back nicely, but then you get a gap in his belly. But he does lean back, so I'll give him that. He leans nicely going back, going forward. Also pretty nice. Not as much as back, but it's okay. Going side to side, it only happens down here and up here, of course. It works, but because this middle joint is only the crunch, like freaking Hasbro does, you lose some range and some natural movement, because this is just a fixed piece now. So he does lean. Rotation happens at the waist and at the top, but neither of them has that much, so it's a little bit limited there. So it's a functional torso, but it's pretty ugly, and it does lack some nuance in the posing. Now let's just show you this one. This one came out like forever ago at this point. It's a much older figure, and I'm pretty sure it's just balls. It's been a while. It feels like balls. But let's see. Okay, well that's a ball. It popped off because I did it too hard. There we go. Alright, so he leans over still pretty far. And let's see about going back. And he goes back pretty far also. It's maybe not as much range, but it looks so much better doing it. Leaning to the side doesn't look that much better. There's a little bit of gapping going on. And I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. If I force this one in the middle to go too, it does make it a little bit more natural. But I'm not saying it's better in every single way, but I'm saying it's so much better looking that the trade-off in slightly less range maybe is worth it, because it's such a better looking torso than this. And there's the room for improvement on this one too, like this weird cut up here. But it's just, I don't think the ab crunch is the way to go, Bandai. It's a really weird call on this line. I just got done reviewing and I realized I didn't show you guys the shoulders I was going to show you. So this guy's shoulder's a little bit different than the other one. I think way better looking, but it does have a pretty cool setup. It rotates laterally so you can bring the arm around. Now it's not as far, don't get me wrong, but it's a much more natural shoulder. It's way less complex. It still raises up too on that middle part. This is an older release and it's kind of stuck and loose at the same time right now. So I can't get it to go. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Great. Look, it won't stay. But it did at one point work, I'm pretty sure. I guess the point is, it doesn't need to be as complex. This one definitely needs some fine-tuning. Bandai's been doing a lot of fine-tuning for like 100 years now, and Variable Action Heroes, Mega House, they aren't as let's say, fluent in articulation, so I think they could have done something like this much better. Bandai, that is. Rather than going the crazy route of doing everything they did. This guy definitely looks better in a neutral, if you ask me. The other one probably functions a little more, but I think they could have found a happy medium, happy middle ground, rather than doing what they did with the over-engineering. Okay, his sword, or knife, or whatever you want to call it, tabs in like that, which I find frustrating, because if you don't want to put it on there for whatever reason, you still have a tab. I prefer to see the tabs on the accessory rather than on the belt. But that's there, and it can rotate around, of course. Now for the hips, I'm going to pull it off to show you. It's a ball peg. Here, let me do this. It's a ball peg with this piece here that rotates with the leg to hide the gap. Alright, so it's just, essentially it's a ball peg functionally speaking. You get your socket right there. Come on, come on, come on. Here we go. We get your socket right there, and that socket is connected all the way through to the bottom part of the leg. The pants are a floating piece that's kind of just suspended on the skeleton of the inside. So it gives you lots of extra range, but the problem is, on this side, it wasn't connected all the way, and I cannot get it to get any tighter. Like, this piece doesn't flop around as much over here. This one does, and it creates that floaty pants thing. So anyway, we can rotate this around, and he kicks up that high. And if you force it, that's as far as it goes. So he kicks up pretty high. As far as going back. He goes back pretty well too, so that's good. Good range in the hip in that direction. Sorry about that. There we go. And going out to the side, it's pretty good too. Like basically full on splits. It's a good looking joint. You also get, it's kind of like a slip joint because that ball socket for the hip is articulated down here also. So you get your your thigh swivel, but you also get a little bit of a ball peg, which I don't know if it's super useful, but it's in there. This side I just can't do much with because this was assembled incorrectly and I have to try to fix it. There's your ball peg down here. That's going to be your thigh swivel and for extra range. It's way too loose though. And then you get a double jointed knee, which has pretty good range, but not enough. So you can slide it down and then you get even more range. That's way too complex. You don't need to do any of that. It's not necessary and it's not a good looking knee joint to begin with. So this piece right here that's already too loose, that is a slip joint also, it doesn't need to exist. This guy doesn't have that. He has much better looking legs. And all they did was raise the shorts up just a little bit. It's hardly even noticeable from the side. And he gets way better range. And all they have is a standard ball peg in there. Or maybe it's just a hinge even. Yeah, it's a hinge. And a swivel. Yeah, hinge and a swivel. Way better design. I don't even think you needed to do all that, but they did. And it works way better. And it's way less complex. This guy's knees are way nicer. I don't like this guy's situation. It's not the worst in the world, but since it's floppy already, and then the way it all lines up, he ends up with a big thigh gap and kind of a knock-kneed look, or bow leg look. It's just kind of weird. And I guess you'll see if you get it in hand. It's a finicky thing to handle, especially with that slip joint and the really gappy knee. It's not great. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's way over-engineered. It doesn't need to do that. Down here we have a ball peg. I guess we'll use this foot. We have a ball peg for the ankle. So it rotates, of course, and you get your ball peg. Then you get your hinge that goes all the way back and all the way forward. It's a really nice ankle, super functional. Ankle rocker. It's a little steep, it's a little crooked. So you just rotate it at the top, and that's fine. So it's really functional. And then the toe joint, it's not the best toe joint in the world, but it is definitely going to work. And it doesn't have any huge gaps or chunks, but it's a little bit ugly. But it will work. So, yeah, he's definitely over-engineered. Will he pose? Yeah. Will he hold the pose? I don't know. These thighs and knees are not great. That's for sure. I think you'll be able to pose him well enough. And once you do, you'll probably be fine. Even the shoulders, once you get a good pose, they don't look bad. But having the big thigh gap in the weird, overly complex hip to knee area is really annoying to handle. This isn't the best looking articulation for the torso, and it's functional enough. Yeah, there's just a lot of trade-offs on this guy, and some things that aren't as good as they should be. But he is definitely good enough, I would say. I just think they didn't need to do quite as much as they did. I'm going to give his articulation, range-wise, an 8 out of 10. Functionality and everything, I'm going to go 7 because he's got those really loose legs. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people. It's going to be really annoying when this guy falls over every 5 minutes. But overall, I think it's a pretty good spread of articulation despite the weird quirks and flaws and nuances. So now it's time for the final verdict. Is this a really good release? I would say it's definitely better than average and has the potential to be really good, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot here and there, so I'm hesitant to say it's really good. Now, compared to the rest of the One Piece line, for sure. By far the best. It's not perfect, though. I think I'm going to give it an overall rating of 8 out of 10. It is a solid release for sure, but you're going to have to accept some trade-offs, and so that's going to come down to you. Objectively, I can't say they're good or bad. They are trade-offs. So you get something and you lose something else. That's purely subjective if you like it or not. For instance, the shoulders, like I said, they're ugly in some positions, but really good in other ways. You have to decide if that's good for you. But yeah, I think 8 out of 10 is fair. It's a strong release. If you're an Ace fan, pick it up. You'll enjoy it enough. Hopefully you don't get one that's super loose. Mine aren't like terribly bad, but it's really unpleasant to handle. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've handled enough figures. It can get really annoying when a figure is not fun. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Really good, I don't know. You guys can decide. Let me know in the comment section below. But that's it for me. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos just about every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.